Hey, Malik.
Hey.
With your classic intro, glass of water. I was busy telling the list, guys, can you please give a shout out to Malik? We have started. Call him. South Africans are ready. He has to come on. The ladies are here to hear from you, so come on. Welcome. Malik?
Yep.
Do you want to say hello to everyone?
Yeah, we're here. Today is about mate preparation, right?
Yep.
And what that means, even using that terminology when talking about like dating. We don't really say mating anymore. Like I think that's like an outdated term, but it's not really an outdated term because it's still what we do. Like we still are mating, and I think if we use that terminology, we'd be a lot more intentional about the people we're around, the people we interact with, how we vet people, and the entire process of going about dating, which is really about we're vetting people for the mating process.
Uh-huh.
And so we have to have a shift because at the end of the day, this is all about family. Like the person you choose is you're vetting them to duplicate their genes into the next generation. So it's a serious process. And because of the sex culture we have, because of some of the narratives we have about family, men and women, it's interesting because on one breath, we will diminish the other person and say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. They're not stepping up, but we still give this person our body. We will still be open to this person, but not take them seriously enough to think about, I'm laying down with this person. There's a possibility that we create something together. Uh-huh. Am I like, that is the great imbalance. Like, because we're not stopping. If sex was just going down everywhere, then I could understand some of the logical arguments we make when it comes to, oh, well, men aren't doing this or women aren't doing this. It would make sense.
Yeah.
But there's something still spiritually, emotionally, culturally, mentally that we're still trying to use sex to fill some kind of void or seek some kind of pleasure. But at the same time, we speak our grievances as if I can't take this person serious enough to marry or to even be committed to, but we can have sex.
Yeah. You know, I was just saying now, as part of my intro, that as ladies, we actually control if we'll have a child for a man or not, because even if you want a baby and I don't want a baby, I can easily use contraceptives because I've decided that I don't want a baby with you. But if I choose that I want a baby with you, I will make it happen because you never really know. I can say I'm on contraceptives and I'm not. So we have total power in that essence because we are the hosts. So we decide who we're going to host, so to say. So like what you're saying, sometimes, of course, yes, we complain about somebody not showing up, not doing what they're supposed to do. But that's what I was asking, that how many of us actually give this enough thought to understand the weight of allowing somebody into the vortex? You call it the vortex? Yes, you call it the vortex. Yeah, so do we actually ever even engage it to that depth to say, yes, I can allow this person into my vortex, but what are the implications? What am I receiving? What am I hosting? What am I multiplying? And I don't think most of us actually think of it like that. And that's why most of the time in such situations, we always, we're going to blame someone. But again, that's why there are these platforms, because there's probably, a big gap in terms of knowledge transfer, just knowing that, what does it actually mean? Because we're in a space where, sex is just sex. Like, it's not a big deal. just have sex, it's just sex. But no one is actually telling everybody about the weight, the pressure that comes with that, because basically by the time you lay down or you lay on top, things will never be the same. You have a bond, whether you like it or not, that you have to live with for the rest of your life. So the question today is really, who are we choosing to have those bonds with, those eternal bonds with?
It's really a cultural shift, because
Malik,
the issue is that...
Sorry, Malik, can you catch that comment there?
Let me see. Grace 13 says, so true. I think that a lot of the time women will use sexuality to get what we want or to try and keep it. It's quite hard for women to admit it, but it's a huge shift when it's recognized too.
Yeah.
That happens. And I've talked to a lot of people who say that's how they love. That's how they show their love to someone.
Yeah.
Because they maybe don't have the emotional maturity to express themselves in any other kind of way. So this may be how I think I'm going to keep this man. But it all comes back down to that maturity aspect of emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, how much we have made room to develop like all this information at one time, and we just don't. It's not prevalent at all. It's a huge gap in human discourse, especially when you think about, okay, when are people starting to engage in sexual activity? It's becoming younger and younger and younger. So what information is there for a 15-year-old girl or a 16-year-old boy about not only the consequences, but the benefits and what this leads to, which is, again, it's all about family. And this is why I try to get people to understand that there's a deeper thing happening. This isn't just necessarily about men's and women's choices. At some point we get down to that, but there's a deeper spiritual thing happening that is seeking out to destroy family. There is an anti-family spirit. There's a very demonic spirit that says, hey, how can we destroy this union that's made to be divine?
Yeah.
And so when we have this cultural backdrop that says, hey, we have modern feminism, we have sexual liberation, we have hedonism. Everyone is just doing what they want and seeking out pleasure and abandoning any spiritual law or principle or value. We culturally have abandoned those things that traditionally have bonded the family unit, regardless if it was religious, moral, or whatever. It was just embedded. It was just normal. And I think to some degree, we were just following things because that was the way it was, right? That's just how it was. Like it's normalized to a point where we're not. We go back 100 years. I'm not sure we can say everyone was creating family because it was a spiritual reason, right? It was just, okay, well, if you got someone pregnant, now you're going to have a shotgun wedding. We're going to get married because you're pregnant, right? Or so it was more of a stigma still than it was, oh, this is what we do because we're spiritually aligned. And so there was still family being created in some sort of misalignment or some sort of disorder. But because we still value the institution of family and marriage, we're going to make this happen because we're not going to do it any other way. So there was still that understanding, even though it's still a lower level place, because if family was actually centered in spiritual truths, values, alignment, etc., then this movement, this hotbed of modern feminism and sexual liberation could never come to pass. Yeah. We would reject it at the core. We would say that's not what we do. But we saw it as an opportunity, as this looks like freedom. This looks like pleasure. This looks like I can do what I want. This looks like I can express myself freely and do whatever. And so because we accepted it, because we still didn't really have our foot set in spiritual foundation, that the wind blew and that we got off course. And now it's about analyzing, okay, the family dynamic 100 years ago and the family dynamic now, we see it getting worse across the world when it comes to non-marital births, single mother households, children in poverty. Everything is degrading in that sense of family. And so we can talk about the politics of it. We can talk about, oh, I want this person to have this right, this right, this right. We should be able to do this with our bodies. But at the core is, what are we optimizing for? And that starts with, how are you optimizing yourself as you prepare? Because you can only control yourself, right? I can't control what this person does with their body, this person does with their body, but it's about, if you can think about it at least and say, what do I actually want? And a lot of people are using sex to escape maybe the distance between where they are and where they want to go. Like, they want to be with someone, but they're not ready to be serious. So they can maybe just stay around casually or have sex casually, but that's not really what they want long term, when they should be spending time preparing themselves for what they actually want. I talk to a lot of women who are like, well, I'm dating right now, I'm not looking at anything serious. It's like, well, why are you dating? There's no reason to date if you're not looking for anything serious, because you're going to find something not serious. You're going to find a guy who's not serious because you're going to meet your match.
Yeah, and I mean, what the question you're asking is a dilemma for many of us as ladies, really, to say, why are you dating someone who's not what you want? You are sure he's not what you want, and you know for sure, as holy as a guy can be, eventually he wants sex, honestly. So he's not dating you just to pray with you and make sure that, you know what, you reach your goals. And at the end of the day, he's got his own targets. So now we can easily play victims of the consequences when things don't turn out the way that we had hoped for, despite, being aware that this is not the type of man that I see myself long-term with. So now the big question is, what is the big hindrance then for us as women? Because usually we're the ones who would cry more to say, where are the guys? The guys are hating us. This is what he did. Now I'm pregnant. He's neglecting me. And when you look back, this guy never promised you anything to start off with.
Yeah.
You also knew that this is not the caliber of men that I would want to spend the rest of my life with. Bule says, so wonderful to hear a feminine perspective like this. Yeah, so guys, thanks for the comments. We appreciate the comments and the questions, because it also, guides us to hit the points, the pressure points, so to say. So the big question is, yes, why do we continue to engage in relationships and invest ourselves? Because sex is the highest investment in a relationship, honestly. Sex is the highest currency. So even if a guy can do this or that, for him, he needs the sex. He's going to hit the sex. And the beautiful thing, Flori says, so much value. Thank you. We appreciate that. The beautiful thing is, guys know that, look, I'm just going in and out, then I'm out of that place. But as ladies, somehow always get trapped into hoping, okay, maybe things will change. Maybe things will evolve. Maybe something magical will just pop, and then this guy is just going to be responsible, focused, well aligned with life and all of that. It hardly happens like that, because you are not a kindergarten,
Right.
that whole vibe, that there's nothing that you're going to do to change another adult. So why are we allowing ourselves to be in such situations where we see that this is a high risk type of person? Why am I investing my time? Time is value, serious value. Why am I investing my spirit, my body with someone that I know for sure they are not worthy of my being? Not that they are, they are bad or they're unholy and you are holy, but it's just in terms of alignment, what you want. This is not what I want. I know for sure it's not. But why am I laying down for this? Why can't we wait when you know that this is not what I want? Why do we need that interim person until we get to what we want? And again, while we're in the interim phase, in our minds we're thinking, okay, in the interim, this is going to be the person while I'm waiting for the real one. But guess what? The real ones, God also hears their prayers. They also want the real woman. The real guys want real women want real men. So most likely somebody who is like that, who is intentional, who is clear-minded, who knows what they want, they're also not looking for someone who is lukewarm, who's just, I'm just parking here for a while. Let me check what's coming, what's going. Then I'll pick my, the fattest cow. It's not going to happen because the laws of nature don't allow that. Because if somebody is willing to work on themselves, purify themselves, so to say, somebody's waiting, somebody is, is aligning themselves with what nature allows, most likely they'll hit it right. And they're not willing to settle. So the question is, why can't we wait and get ourselves ready? Why do we feel the pressure to do something in the interim?
There's two sides to that, right? So there's the one that's our innate physical, fleshly side, which is also has, emotional, psychological needs of, security, companionship, love, affection. And if you didn't have those things growing up, you can very well fulfill those things through sex and just casual dating, casual relationships that you're not building towards anything. It's just a placeholder because you haven't figured out or been taught how to fulfill those things outside of using another person. And even when you're in something that may be aligned, it can still be a detriment because I don't know how to regulate myself. I don't know how to regulate my own emotions, my own thoughts, my own urges, my own needs, and it can still cause friction in something that is aligned. So it's something that it's not just about finding the right person. It goes back to like preparing myself. Like, how am I optimize myself? Can I regulate my own thoughts and emotions and issues internally, and then come to resolution with someone else? But then it goes back to the spiritual side as well. And one of my favorite quotes, like of the Bible, is like, "Lean not on your own understanding." And since we're not taught the nature of masculine, feminine energy, we have a lot of people leaning on their own understanding. And women, the feminine essence within itself is flow. It is to not really have a concept of limitation, a concept of boundaries, a concept of the rigidness of masculinity. So if I don't know the bounds that masculinity has, I don't know the nature of man, then I'm going into it with my own understanding. So as a woman, you're going into it with this intuitive, visionary, imaginary place, which can very well lead to delusion. And a lot of women live in delusion because they're not thinking and processing things with that flow. They're just trying to conjure up what they want. So they're like, okay, in the short term, I'm going to do this. I want to have fun. I want to meet this person. I want to just do this thing. And I'm not really thinking about the future, my body, or where this is going. It's just wishful thinking. And if you pair that lack of spiritual awareness with the maybe emotional or psychological issues that we may have stemming from childhood, adolescence, young adulthood, whatever, it makes a very dangerous individual and vulnerable individual when you have a culture that says, hey, do what you want, be free, be liberated. So you have these are three dynamites: emotional, psychological, cultural, and spiritual, all coming together to create the perfect storm. And it's a lot of people are being displaced year after year after year because we're not correcting either of the issues. There's no huge spiritual movement right now that is mainstream that is saying, hey, let's recorrect the course for family and how we're creating this thing. There's no political movement that says, hey, everything political is still going more extreme to, hey, more freedom, do what you want, less consequence, let's think how we can, let's make that go away. Emotionally, mental health is becoming more prevalent, but it's still not mainstream to where you can just go walk in somewhere and order some therapy like you can McDonald's, right? Like, that's how really available mental health should be. I should be able to go anywhere in my city, just walk into a place. Hey, I need some need a session, doc. All right, cool, yeah. Schedule you out.
Yeah.
Right. So people
Can you get
can
Malik?
schedule a plastic surgery before they can schedule therapy.
Yeah, true. Just get that, please, Malik, on your side. I can't see. There's a comment there.
Oh, let me scroll down. I'm getting that. Okay. Wait a minute. Thans 19. You hit the nail on the head there. Thank you for the different perspectives. And you're welcome. We're just parsing through. And again, this is like depths of information that comes from different avenues of life, right? Again, there's a psychological component, there's an emotional component, there's a cultural component, and there's a spiritual component. And we can all admit that, hey, at 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, you were not fed this information, but you still had spiritual state, psychological state, and a cultural state that was impacting your decisions even at that age. And then as you get into your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, those things, if they're not resolved, they don't fix themselves.
Yeah.
They still require awareness and then mastery once you have the awareness. And sometimes now we get into a space where a lot of people are like, hey, Jay, I read your book and I want to start doing this and doing that. Because they have the awareness, it's like, well, now I think I deserve this. And this goes now like, okay, you're aware of maybe what a good man is or what a good woman is or how you should be moving, but that's just awareness. That's just mind. There still has to be now spiritual depth and integration in who do I have to be to attract this person in a world where things are going in chaos. So to attract an orderly person in a world of chaos, you have to also be sitting in order. And it requires discipline, restraint, a lot of different things. And honestly, most people are not really sold on removing themselves from the cultural backdrop that is causing the dysfunction. So it's like we want to live in the world of dysfunction and somehow find order in it. And it's until enough people say, hey, you know what, I can't live this life over here and also attract something completely opposite.
Yeah.
And it's just like a lot of women, especially like younger, maybe let's say 20 to 30, 32. It's like I always want to have my time. It's either I want to have fun or I want to focus on my career. And I made a post about this maybe a couple weeks ago but women don't get to choose. Like when a woman says she's ready, it does not matter.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think a lot of women understand that. Like you have to use the analogy. Like we're not saying women are commodities, but you got to be on the shelf until someone walks in the store and walks by and says, I'll take that one.
You know what you're saying is the hardest thing for the modern woman to accept, to visualize ourselves as, a package on the shelf. And the reason most likely it's like that is because we've been given the delusion of freedom so much that it's making us so sick. And slowly and surely we are feeling the impact because we are losing our minds. We know we don't have the peace. We're looking for answers. We don't have the answers. And it doesn't make sense because you're so well developed. You are so well resourced, but you can't manage just this one aspect, which is the relationship. So now what is the problem? So like you were saying, look, no one is making it fashionable for us to understand femininity and the masculinity part of it, like in terms of the order of nature.
Yeah.
So then we tend to apply our own logic, our intellect to say, oh, okay, 1 + 1 is 2. And we ignore the facts of what nature is. The same way that women have the control. Women have the control of sex. We have that control. But guess what? Men have the control to say we're going to date, we're going to get married. You don't choose as a woman to say, I want to get married. I mean, there's no guy who wants actually to be told, like, you're going to marry me now. Because what we also know is that for guys, from day one, he knows if he wants to marry you or not. Guys know that from day one. They know that. So now, by the time we justify why the guy is not committing, it's just in our own heads. But we can logically see that, okay, here I think I'm being played. But we keep on hoping that no, man, but it can't be that bad. Maybe it's coming. But for guys, they know from day one, this is a woman to marry, or this is a woman to just have fun with.
Yep.
So now someone is asking, what do we mean when we say women don't have a choice? From my point, Malik, you also have to answer that. So from my point, what it means is that as a woman, you don't go to a man and say, hey, how's it? Let's start dating. Like a man who is in his masculine state doesn't want that. He wants to feel like he is the hunter and he is coming. He wants to work on his prey until he gets it, because that's what motivates a masculine man, a man who's proper in their masculine state. They want to feel like it was their choice. There's no lion, literally, who wants meat that was cut for it and like, oh, lion. That's not a real lion. Of course, you can get lions that are a bit tamed. But you know that is not a lion in its prime, because by nature, a lion has its nature. So now for the mere fact that as human beings, we can interfere with innate nature, it doesn't mean that the nature of the lion has changed. The same for men. Men by nature, they are meant to be the ones who say, that is what I want. I'm going for that. That's where the choice comes in. Because as a woman, even if you think you're ready for marriage or you think you're ready for that guy, if that guy is not coming to propose, guess what?
He's saying you're not ready.
He's not ready. So it doesn't mean you don't have a choice. It just means that, oh yeah, so she says, okay, she says she understands what we mean. Okay, I'm glad we clarified that, because I think that's what is confusing us, the modern woman, because we have so much choice. We have so much power that we think we can change the order. We can't change the order. The best place to be as a man and as a woman is to be in the order. Discover the order and be in the order, because once you're in the order, the favor of the universe is in your favor. Literally, the favor is in your favor. The frustration comes in when you come with, your level of development, whatever that you think you have. Then you're like, no, it's my right, it's my choice. Yeah, but I'm yet to find anyone who speaks like that and they literally are in a space of peace, inspiration, contentment. There's no way, because
that's the conflict.
You are going anti. So it doesn't mean that men do what they want. And no, it's not. It's a matter of just you understanding what is the order and be in alignment with the order, because you want favor of the order. Grace says, I love the way you shared that so much. Okay. Grace, you're our number one fan for today.
Like, I think that, like, that order, the idea of order is the entire conflict when it comes to spiritual alignment and the cultural backdrop of like feminism and sexual liberation. It's, if you understand, like, these movements are made, whether consciously or subconsciously, like it's intentional, it's a spiritual intention behind it, but these movements are trying to circumvent the order in a way. It's like, okay, what can we can't just remove it, so what can we do to start like weakening the order? And I think that energy understands that, okay, the only way I can really get rid of this order is to make people not value it at all in the first place. So there are women and some men even now who are completely removing the importance of, well, family's not that important, or marriage is not that important, or, I just want to do what I want. And you have to really go to the extreme to really reject the order, because at some point, you said that no man wants someone to be like, hey, you're going to marry me, but no woman really wants to be the person who doesn't feel like she's chosen. Even though like we can play the game and say like, oh, I want to do what I want, I'm a boss, or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, you want to feel validated, because that's part of the feminine anyway. It's like, I need some kind of structure around me to bring this social validation, which is why marriage has been a status symbol forever. You're saying you're ready, but then this man says, yes, you are. I agree, you're ready. that's what it's about. It's like, I agree. You can say I'm ready, but if he doesn't say, okay, I think you're ready, then, but then you can also say you're ready and pick a man who's not ready. And you can just be somebody who's ready can see you and say, I thought she was ready, but she's dealing with that. Like, she's willing to have fun and just do her own thing and live her own life and be her own boss. And then she wants to, like, find me later. Or
can we read that? I think that's a good question.
Who's this?
Anymore.
Okay, someone says make people not value the order. Then we have one says, while waiting to be chosen and provided for, how do we release the pressure to earn and do things that we love? And I think you asked me this question earlier, but I think those two things are in a way unrelated, right? This is like the dilemma, right? Because this is why this whole cultural backdrop is like just destructive in general, because there's a idea that you have to do X, Y, and Z and do all these things, but the reality is we're here in this space, and until there's for women, until there's a space where women are saying, hey, this is how we're going to change this, then this is going to be the reality. And so with that, you have to do what you have to do, right? Like, that shouldn't impact how you view the order. And that's kind of the issue with the modern woman, is because you can work, you can earn money, you can own a business, you can have investments, you can have assets, but those things don't make you more ready, right? So it's not about necessarily the pressure to earn or being in that space. The order or the masculinity comes when you don't understand where your feminine nature goes in the order. And so there's so much esteem that can be built up with success, with beauty, all these different things that can be revered individually that makes you forget the value of the order. And when women value the order, it doesn't matter if you're going to work or not, if you own your own business or not, or it doesn't matter, because you spiritually value the order. So it's like, if I got to go clock in and work this shift, one, I need to also start being more vocal to other women and saying, hey, what are we doing? Because this is what women did in the past to conjure up this culture in the first place. And if you really feel in your spirit that this whole backdrop is not aligned with you, then that means we need more women to be vocal, because we can't have women loud about what they don't want as far as the order to go. Like, we have a lot of women who are vocally against masculine order, like loud as shit about, we don't want men telling us what to do. We have a lot of women vocal. We don't have a lot of women who are vocal about maintaining the order or regaining the order or correcting the order. So and especially from a man's standpoint, if a man's looking at the cultural backdrop and most of the women are loud about what they don't want men to do, and then the women who are for men are like, yeah, I'm not with that group though. But it's like, there's no mass movement of women who are combating that.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you want to change it, you have to start being a missionary of that, saying, hey, we're reestablishing this order because it's important. And that changes your energy too, because now you're walking in congruence with what you believe. And it's not just your silent thoughts or your I want this deep down, but I'm going to be quiet about it. That brings enthusiasm, that brings vitality to the self, because, okay, I'm doing this thing, but I'm still internally preparing for order and union. And that preparation is attractive. That is a magnet within itself, if it's coming from a genuine place and not just, I'm going to say this so I can get a man. It's, I actually believe these things. And so that's going to start shifting up my own universe and how things are moving within my life. So the pressure to earn, that could be there. It shouldn't be there. Like, having to earn shouldn't create pressure. It should create the pressure really is saying, how can you lean back into valuing the order in the first place. Because some women will earn and say, because I'm earning, I won't respect a man because I'm doing this too. And that can cause imbalance. So it's like a series of things that when we're in this space of dysfunction that can cause confusion. And it all goes back to like we're refusing the simplicity of the order. The order is very, very simple. It's been simple for centuries, millennium. It's simple, but there's a sense of they've done a great job marketing the order as oppressive, or the order is demeaning, or the order is degrading, or the order is trying to be superior. And it's just, hey, we are two different energies coming together to be one energy.
Yeah. I think from what you were saying just now about, you said quite a few things, but about, there's not enough women basically pushing the movement of saying, look, this whole order is what we should be striving for. It's true, because it's made unfashionable. It doesn't make sense. You sound weak. When you speak like that as a woman, it's like, where's your honor? Like, as a powerful woman, you're modern. I mean, you do what you want. Don't tolerate this nonsense. And of course, we're talking about men that are in order. We're not talking about a man who himself is not in order. Obviously, we're not talking about that, because that is another topic altogether. So it's not fashionable. Yeah. And so the biggest thing about that also is any change, any major change, it comes about from women, not from men. Women have that power to change. And also, if you want to get a sense of any community, you have to look at the women, what the women are doing in their majority. The women decide, literally women decide on a lot of, in terms of how the family will turn out, how the community therefore turns out, just the whole vibe around that. You look at the women, then you know what is going on in that community. So now, definitely until the women decide that, look, this is a bigger thing, because we complain, we cry about, and we're victims of abuse, of men that are not centered, men that are not aligned. But who is raising this man? Who is raising this man, and who is allowing this man to have sex with us as they please, without them having earned the right to come into our vortex, so to say? We are giving the men the permission, and it's not to say we're holier, but we have the keys of control in terms of keeping the order in this whole universe. Men have the power to, like we're saying, to decide if they're going to commit to you or not, if they're going to make sure that you're okay, they look out for you or not. That's about the power and the power to create, so that they can take care of their responsibilities. So until the more and more of us as women get to a point where we say, guys, ladies, let's stop fooling each other. Men are not looking for whether we're earning more or less, which is what is confusing us as ladies. Another lady was asking, it just passed by so quickly, you're still talking, that how do you remain feminine when you're trying to just, keep your bills, going? And another lady saying, okay, so now if you've got your own money. But the point is, as ladies, we are so concerned about us earning more or less, which is not the issue. Men are not looking for what we earn. Men are in fact looking for the feminine side of us, because they're looking for the thing they do not have, that they know they need in their life. So as women, we are misled, because we are being pushed to go into, the world of working, making money, showing that we can do exactly what men can do. But no one is telling you that as you're moving into that space, you are living your own space that only a feminine person can occupy. So now, who's occupying that space when you're busy moving into that direction to prove to the men that you can do exactly what they can do? So that's why most of us are concerned with, oh, I'm making enough money, or I'm not making enough money. But men are not looking for that. Men who are in their, who are in their prime in terms of just being in alignment with the order, they want to take care of you. But taking care of us in terms of, obviously, they're looking for a complementary match of somebody who understands, what they need to bring on the table, so that between the two of us, we'll be able to complement each other and deliver on something tangible that is reciprocal in terms of just the energy, the positive energy. So we are basically looking for different things from each other, but we've been made to believe that we're looking for the same thing. We can't be looking for the same thing. We're looking for a complementary thing. There's something that a man has that as a woman you wanted specifically from a man, and the opposite for guys. They know that there's something that they want. Men who are in alignment, they want the femininity more than anything. And there's nothing that can be traded for that. Malik?
Yeah, somebody got a comment here. I think there's a general fear because when women refer to femininity and how things were in the past, a lot of men from the past made feminine women endure abuse under the guise of submission. And so like, I break down language very, very well. And this is the issue with that statement, right? For that statement to hold like deep truth, we would have to say that, okay, with women being modern, there is no more abuse. For that statement to have validity, because we're attaching a woman being feminine to being more vulnerable to abuse. And if I look at the data, that's not proven to be true, because we have more children in poverty now than 100 years ago. We have more single-parent households today than 100 years ago. We have more non-marital births than 100 years ago. What is more abusive than the destruction of the family? What is more abusive than a woman being subjected to having to control everything in the household because now she has to figure out how it goes because the union wasn't aligned? That's a lifetime of abuse because, hey, you have to take on the burden of two and you're just one.
Yeah. And
this is what the conversations sometimes they're too based on like the narratives. And again, this goes back to like, hey, feminism has done a great job with marketing. An amazing job with making something so toxic seem like it's so liberating. It's done an amazing job. This might be the greatest political marketing campaign of all time when we actually look at it. Like, wow, how did we get a whole culture to just disregard their traditional family values almost overnight? We just dangle the freedom carrot over their heads and they're saying, hey, I believe in this. This makes sense. And it's impacting people at such a deep level and again, it's to no fault of anyone here because no one here started feminism. No one here started this movement. We were all born into it. And now we have to dissect it from an objective standpoint and say, what are these talking points and how can I address these actually in a real world way? And that's a common thing that I get from women who have like some kind of pushback on patriarchy or masculine order or masculine leadership. It's like, well, in the past, and it's a very Disney fairy tale way of looking at the past. And then if you compare it to the future, like the only way we can say the past was bad because of masculine leadership is, okay, well, how is it now? Like realistically, is it better? Like I can say I was worse at something in the past. If I didn't get better, that means it got worse. If it's not improving, that means it's only getting worse, which means the solution we put in, there was no solution. But within the patriarchy, women didn't have the right to work or do anything, so we had to accept abuse. And so now this, and I'm great we're having this dialogue. And I'm not coming at you personally. I'm just you're highlighting a lot of the thoughts that a lot of people have that may not be brave enough to comment. So I want to go back to your own comment maybe 10 minutes ago about the pressure to earn. So now we have dichotomy of the pressure to earn versus the right to work. Which one do you want? Not saying you can't have the right to work, but understand the right to work comes with the pressure to earn. You cannot play the game two sides. Yeah. Not saying this, like you can you can do these things, and these things were allowed. This was not a battle that women had to fight men for with bloodshed. Think all political movements that involve men and other men all result to violence. Every political movement that ever involved men and men always result in physical violence. There was no violence. There was no bloodshed between men and women. Women were saying, hey, we want to do this thing. They were like, that makes sense. Okay, cool. Got it. More tax money for us, more money for, like, cool, we got it. Right? No violence, no friction. There was pushback mentally, but no violence. And so we have to even consider like how men ushered feminism in was a way that men do not act politically. That is not how men, there's a conflict, that is not how men do business. So men said, okay, cool, great. There may have been like some hesitation, and maybe for good reason. Like, I don't know if it's a good idea long term. Like, no, we'll allow it, whatever. So it came in, and there's a narrative that like women came into feminism because they were fighting back against the patriarchy. It's like that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. Men were like, okay, cool. If y'all were out in the streets shooting men because they were oppressing you, I would get this. I would understand this too. But you have to understand the history. Look at the plight of political change anywhere in the world. Men have always died for what they believe in. Nobody died. No, there's no war you can point to. Like, that was the feminism war, where 1 million women stood up and fought a million men. That didn't happen. So this narrative that we say like, oh, this oppressive, how can this oppressive thing that say, hey, okay, cool, we agree. That's not how, like, so it's like the narrative, we just have to unpack some of the narratives that feminism has marketed to women, saying this is how you got your power. This is how you got your freedom. This is how you created this thing. It's talking about toxic masculinity. There have always been misaligned men. That's going back to ancient ages. The reason men create laws because men understand there are men who are unruly. Men have always understood this. Women haven't understood this because they haven't had to understand this. Men literally create laws because they understand there are men who break laws.
But not everybody is breaking the law.
Not everyone is breaking the law. So there are men who are abusive, but not every man is abusive. But guess what? Men say, hey, this man is abusing you. That's against the law. We can give him penal repercussions for that. Mm. But when we have it from a feminist standpoint to say, you know what, I see what y'all doing for the law, but I don't necessarily think it's the right way. We're going to go our own way and do this thing. And they're like, okay, that's cool too. Like, it's not like we're going to change the laws for abuse or anything like that. Like, they're still going to have the same penal code regardless, but you can live your life socially how you want to, culturally how you want to, sexual liberation how you want to. Like, cool. But it's not like it's legal now for men to be toxic. We have to parse things out individually, right? Like, it's not that patriarchy means, okay, we're for abuse, we're for domestic violence, we're for like marital abuse. Like, no, those things are not a part of the order. It's not part of the alignment. So we're trying to parse things that are in misalignment with things that are in alignment. Those things were never a part of the order in the first place. Those things were never about family in the first place. Those things were also destructive to family. But we can't use those things that are out of alignment as if those were the things that were holding family together, because those things are still in the tail ends of the distribution curve. So yes, there are men who are toxic and violent and don't have the social cues, but that also depends on their upbringing. The same way if you have a woman who's abusive, it's probably her upbringing. She didn't just become an abusive woman. So we have people who are socially unaccounted for because we can't be in everyone's household and say what happened to them as a child, how their parents treated them. We can't be there for everyone, which is why we have spirituality in the first place to say, hey, live your life this way to protect yourself from the evils that come with life. Like the same way I'm saying men know the nature of men, God knows the nature of all of our hearts. He's saying, I know how all of you will be if you go your own way. Follow my code so you don't get exposed to the evils of yourselves. Follow these laws to understand my nature and not your own. If you lean on your own understanding, you will perish. And what are humans doing? We're seeking our own pleasure, avoiding pain, and we are causing our own demise because we don't want to follow the order.
Yeah, I think the biggest confusion for the modern woman is that, I mean, the idea of abuse has been so highlighted that it would seem that anyone who's willing to submit, so to say, or who is apparently feminine, is being abused. I mean, this thing has been so publicized, and unfortunately, healthy relationships, balanced families, healthy families are not being put out there. We're seeing more and more of what is going wrong, that we end up being so defensive before we even engage, because we already saying, look, I'm not tolerating this. I know once he does this, I'm out. Once this, I'm out. We are so prepared to deal with this man. And like you're saying, look, just like with women, it doesn't mean just because this person was like that, everybody's like that, because it's not fair to also put everybody under one umbrella. The biggest confusion above all is what is actually this, what does it actually mean to be feminine? The idea of submission, because that is the worst thing for the modern woman, including myself. I mean, there was a point where I said, no ways, like I'm not. Until I actually just kind of got this clear in my Bible a few years ago, that submission to a man is the God, the order of God. So now our problem is when we submit to a man who does not deserve submission, then we end up thinking submission is bad. Submission is beautiful, and submission is not supposed to be forced. Once a man says, you are a woman, you must submit to me, already you're talking to the wrong man, because a man who's in his order won't tell you to submit to him. You will willingly submit to a man who deserves your submission. You don't need an appointment for that. You don't need an instruction for that. You will submit to a man who deserves the honor, because what it means in actual fact is that man is a man after God's own heart. Because what is that verse that talks a lot about submission and about how just like Christ, loves the church. So once you are with a man who doesn't love you like Christ loves the church, meaning a man who is not in alignment with God, if you submit to a man like that, of course it's going to be abusive, because you are not aligned to the right order. What does it mean to submit? It means to follow leadership, because remember, that's another thing that is confusing many of us. Like, what does it mean to submit? Because I've got my own brain. I'm not going to submit to somebody else. Most of us go through that like I'm not. So is that thing again that, guess what? As women, we do not have the power to choose that. Okay, I want that man, I'm going to marry you. It's the other way around. We have power to decide which sperm will host and multiply and make a baby, and like which man will entertain enough to use our resources to make a home for him and give him honor by the way that we conduct ourselves, because you become a reflection of your partner and vice versa. That's why for those that follow the Bible, Proverbs 31 woman is not every woman who's a Proverbs 31 woman. That woman is a woman who, if you read closely, you realize that that woman has her match. A man who is also well known. It doesn't mean being famous. It just means a man who understands his place as a man, who has earned his place in the society, so to say, who has worked for that position. And then a man like that wants a wants a woman who will be able to come up to that. So that's why it's important that when a man is not ready to be a man, don't make him ready if he hasn't earned that position. So sometimes we make men to be men just because we are ready. Like, okay, you find this guy, he's just chilling. He's not serious about anything in life. You just found him teasing every girl, but you're like, oh, but he's cute. I love his body. I love the way he talks. But this man exhibited nothing like a man of honor, a man that you can say, that is someone that I will be willing to make babies with. That is someone that I'll be willing to sit down with and strategize and hear where he's going. So already we're talking about a man who is in production. He must already be in his place producing, like a man should. So now you find a man, he's doing nothing with his life, and you're like, no, I'm ready to make you a man. I'm going to give you kids. I'm going to take you everywhere, and then know that you're a man now. But that man has not earned to have the benefits of a man who has worked hard and who has earned a title, resources. So because for a man, the biggest thing for a man is the man must be resourceful. And then you join a man who is resourceful to multiply the resources. So you don't want to go in there and you become the resource. That's where the abuse comes in, because you're basically with a man who has not gone through his own preparation. And that's why he'll take anyone who looks desperate, who seemingly is willing to take him. And guys always know, they know that this one, just going to go in, have some fun. She's loaded. She'll pay my bills. I'll have some fun. They know from the start. But we're talking submission can only happen to a man who deserves submission. Not all men deserve submission. So now, once the wrong man...
I want to throw a caveat in.
Yeah.
Because I think we have to make this distinction. There is conscious submission, which is what most women think they're doing, like choosing to submit or not to submit, and there's subconscious submission. So I think most women will agree with the idea of conscious submission only applies to men that are worthy of submission. But there's also subconscious submission, which is when you're in the presence of someone that you don't deem worthy of submission, you are naturally submitting anyway, because you're saying, I'm still going to subject my energy to this person. So someone can say, well, I'm with this person, but I'm going to submit because he's not ready. You know, he needs to step up. Like, in a way, you're still, you're subjecting yourself to his level of energy. Mm-hmm. And so, like, energetically, spiritually, you are still submitting. You're still under how the man lives his life.
Yeah.
So, like, the understanding the order is that even though it's out of order, we're never out of order. It's just misaligned, right? Like, the man is still going to be the head, even if you think you're the head, because you're living your life based on his ability, his capacity. You wouldn't be doing the things you're doing as the head if he was not doing what he was doing. So even your own actions are driven by what this man is doing. So even every situation you go into, you are going into a situation where you are submitting to someone's energy, because that is just the natural balance of the masculine and feminine. So the conscious submission is like, I'm not going to beat this. I'm not going to be with this person, or I'm going to be with them. We're going to have fun. This is where kind of like the gray area comes, right? Like, because a woman can say, okay, well, I'm not ready for anything serious. I'll date this guy who's not ready. And I don't got to submit to him because it's not anything too serious. But you still having sex. You're still laying with this man. You're still submitting your energy. You're still giving your body. There's still submission taking place, even though it's not the conscious submission you think it is. Like, for some women, like, conscious submission is just like, okay, I'm going to respect him or value his opinions, or, you know, he's going to be the leader I'm going to follow. It's like, well, we're kind of doing things materially on the outside, the external. We're doing things kind of 50-50. I get to decide some things, he decides some things, and it's the modern woman's freedom. So it's like, well, I'm not submitting, so I don't require, because I don't feel like I'm submitting to him, I don't have to gauge him on that level, because I still have my own power, my own authority, my own money, my own et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the truth is, you went into that scenario submitting to everything that man was.
Mm.
And if a child pops up from that, now it's like, I need this man to step up even further, but he doesn't have those traits, doesn't have those abilities, doesn't have those resources or resourcefulness to be a responsible father. And so like, I agree with the idea that most women would say, hey, I'm not going to consciously submit to this guy, but you have to understand again, like this order is like subconsciously. Why are we even in this space where we want to parse out like when I'm not going to be submissive? It's like we're all impacted by each other. This is a yin and the yang impact. Like you said, you can look at a community and by its women. If the women in a community were not supplying sex, there will be no men having sex.
We are the suppliers. We have
so there's a supply, right? So women have this. It's a two-way street. Women supply sex to the marketplace, and based in any economical principle, if there's more supply, then demand naturally diminishes, or the value of the commodity goes down. If I can get sex on the app by swiping left, there's no value on sex. I can get sex anytime I want it. That's a very low barrier for a man, especially in the Western world. But the thing is, marriage is still a very, I won't say scarce, but it's still a commodity that the supply is always kind of at equilibrium. Like when there's demand, it gets met if the man is supplying it, but it's based on the man's supply. But the thing is, men haven't really changed their rules for what they see as a wife. Women have changed their rules for who they deem that they can sleep with.
Wow.
Like women have changed who I should supply myself for. Men haven't. Men have not changed supply. Women have changed supply. So the market is upside down because the supply that women control, tell women, hey, this is your freedom to supply this. It's not like I can't imagine a movement where someone's like, hey, men, just marry anybody you want. You can do what you want. It wouldn't work for men. Like we were like, that don't make sense.
Men have standards.
So you want me to give away my supply for nothing? No, marry anybody, man. Just be free, man. You ain't gotta marry no good woman. Just marry anybody. Men would not be going for that. But women have been kind of co-opted into this space where it's like, just give it away. Do what you want. Men do it too. It's like, so like the supply has changed. And so like where the conscious submission has left, I'll give my body instead. What greater submission is there than giving your body to someone?
That's the ultimate thing. That is the ultimate. There's nothing else.
Men would not go for it. I'm telling you, there's no men are pushing back against marriage now because they're like, man, these women are just like different now. Like women are accessible for nothing. And men, logically, we think this is how men think. If you're going to do it for me, you probably do it for someone else. Like we're not oblivious enough to think like you're just doing this for me because I'm me.
And that's why sometimes we get surprised that you are with someone, you're dating for like 5 years, 10 years, you're having sex with this guy nonstop. When he wants sex, you give him sex. You wash his clothes, you cook for him, you make sure everything he needs, he gets it. And then the next thing, and he doesn't commit to you. He just says, oh, babe, you're the best. I love you. This, da-da-da-da-da. But he doesn't really commit to you. Then one day, the relationship ends. He starts a new relationship. Within 3 months, he marries the girl. Then you ask yourself, what is the difference between me in the 10-year-old relationship and this lady who they just started dating now? 3 months in, he's marrying her. Because you prematurely acted like a wife and you gave him benefits that he didn't earn. He didn't have to earn. So why should he, overextend himself? I mean, these things are available.
Complaining the whole time about the man. Like, this man isn't doing this, he isn't doing this. And you're like, there's already the friction. A lot of times relationships, like, I don't, like, and this isn't to say that every relationship doesn't have issues or problems, but it's really more so about the spiritual component, right? Like, is this thing spiritually aligned? Do we have spiritual synergy in where we're going in life, what we believe in, what we stand for morally, our principles, our values? Are we both submitting under God's authority over our life? That's paramount. That is first. And for the most part, people know you know when you're not doing that out the gate. You know when you're choosing, like, hey, this ain't about none of that. This is about getting my rocks off, and that's it. And then but the problem is when we have sex with people and we get emotionally attached to people, we're going to create a bond, and you can't undo that bond. Mm-hmm. And so the feminine mind is going to say, well, maybe this can work. And the guy's mind may be saying maybe it can work too if he's in that like disorderly state, because he's also, people think like feminine and masculine, like for men it's like he's a tough guy or he's like a wuss. He can be a very strong man and just be disorderly. He may have a nice job. A man can have all the money and still be out of order.
Yeah.
He can even have nice traits that you like. Like, oh, this man he has a good job. He smells good, looks good, does all the things. He's nice to me. But something about order is just, something is just missing when it comes to just alignment. And if you entertain it because he's a good guy, so I assume it's going to go this way. And that's like part of the feminism trap is like that. We think bad men or bad women have to look a certain way. Mm. So it's easy to be fooled when you're avoiding the boogeyman and you really just run into a nice guy who's not ready. You run into a guy like, oh man, he's a doctor. He gives back to charity. He got all these paper traits you can write on paper.
Yeah, I'm laughing at the boogeyman thing because I usually hear you say the boogeyman.
It's true. Like women, it's like it's easy to assume like, okay, this guy isn't this guy, then he must be the one. But it's not really based on the spiritual integrity. It's not based on, do we have alignment? Are we going to the same place? Are we on the same road? Do we believe in the same things as foundational things? Like, if you put sex before those things, sex is the foundation, not because once you have emotional and sexual attachment to someone, it's easy to try to make up stuff where you connect. Like, well, we both like red. It's like, so we both like shopping here. We both like dogs. We both like animals. We both like nature. It's like you start making stuff up to connect with somebody.
No, it's true. Like, I know most of us have been through that. When you see that, look, this is not working out, but you're like, but at least we do this. But at least I think that is so cute. At least this one. Now you're basically trying to justify why you're still sitting there. You're trying to justify in your mind every single day because logically, you know, logically, and even your instinct, your spiritually, you can feel like, you know what, to be honest, this is not it. But you're like, okay, let's see. No one is perfect. Why am I expecting perfection? And I think that's what confuses so many of us, because you think, a man or a woman in alignment is a perfect person. There's no perfect person.
Exactly.
But it's about being in alignment in terms of values, things that are not physical. Because once we are basing our union on things that can change, things that can be moved, then what it means is the foundation is shaky from the start. But when we with principles, things that are everlasting, they've been there, they remain there. So it means you are not the foundation anymore. So the biggest problem then, what it means is when you're with someone who you do not share core values with, and you share other things, but non-core values, you're sharing things that can, like, you like red today, tomorrow is yellow. That is not core.
Yeah.
That is not a rock type of foundation. That is movable, that is breakable. But when your foundation is based on the rock and the two of you are not the foundation, but God has become your foundation, then there's stability there. So the biggest problem is we want to apply our mind's logic and say, okay, I'm thinking this can work, without asking the originator of these things and say, what is this thing about? Where do I fit in? How can I integrate myself within this order? Because I want to enjoy the fruits of the order, because order has the best fruits. Psalm 1, like a tree that is planted by the river, then it bears fruits in all seasons. Why? Because the source, the foundation, is an everlasting foundation that is not moved by anything. So the weakest point is us being moved from the source, and instead to depend on our own understanding and our own capacities, and that is the weakest link, the weakest. Malik, we have to go to bed this side. It's 8:30. It's 8:30, almost 8:30. And people are saying they're enjoying this, but we've been live for a while. But I want to share this story. In my closing, you'll close just now. In my closing, I was reading the story about King Solomon. I mean, King Solomon under G, we all know he was the wisest king that ever ruled. And that blessing he got from God. And the thing that most of us never hear about is, the downfall of, his favor, so to say, even though he was able to redeem it, but the favor was never the same after that. His downfall was, the beautiful thing about God is he says, look, I welcome you into this world. You don't have to figure anything out. Here are the rules, the guidelines. Just read them and follow the rules and the guidelines, and you'll be fine. You're going to enjoy this. And then we're like, I don't like rule number 2. I'm going to change rule number 5. And then down the road, we're like, God, but where are you? Where are you? Why have you neglected me? And he said, but I told you. I told you. I didn't trap you. I created you with a purpose, and I gave you guidelines to make sure that you can sustain yourself within my purpose. My plan for you is not for you to suffer, but to enjoy yourself in my creation, so that I can experience this world through you, because I have put myself within you. I exist within you. But then obviously as you develop, you grow older, you get a bit of success. You're like, no, man, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do it a bit modern now. So now that's why nothing is really new. King Solomon suffered the same fate. God said, never marry a foreign woman. That was a specific instruction. Never marry a foreign woman. And he's like, yeah, I get you. I listen to you. I just want to do what you want me to do. Along the way, more power, more resources. Then obviously you feel like, okay, I'm more intelligent now. I'm going to change a bit of some of these rules. They're a bit outdated. And then he started marrying foreign women. And God loved Solomon because he was submitted unto him. And he asked for one thing and one thing alone, so that God will dwell within him and awaken within him, so that he will rule with justice his people. And God loved that. It's like, wow, that's the greatest wisdom. And you'll be able to know what to do in every situation. And I'll give you favor for that, because you asked for the right thing. You didn't ask for things. You asked for me. You asked for my instruction, for my intercession in every situation. So I'm going to favor you then in everything else. So now along the way, he married the foreign woman. Towards the end, in his old age, it's clear where it's in the first Samuel or second Samuel, I just forgot a bit. Now he started building shrines for his wives, his foreign wives, because remember, the foreign wives also come with their own beliefs, and their beliefs are not his belief. And the one thing about God, he says that he hates is he will not share us with anything else or anyone else. Once you worship other gods, that is the one thing that makes him furious. So Solomon started making shrines for the wives. Then he joined them, because obviously now that his wife, he can't totally neglect them. He must show some support. And then God said, that's it. I told you. This is the only thing that I said you mustn't do, and you failed to do it. And he kind of lost favor with God there and there. So from that story, for me, was that, you know what, there is so much power with the person that you basically submit to, indirectly or directly, the person that you give all of yourself to, even if you don't agree on things, but by the mere fact that you are joined that closely together, you're going to influence each other. So the problem would be if you don't believe in the same thing. Because if you don't believe in the same thing, someone is going to influence another one in another way. So that's where the part of have core things that you agree on. So now don't go in and say, no, I'll make sure that, I change him or I change her along the way. When you knew very well from the start that your beliefs are different. Because when you do that, it means one of you...
They're foreign at that point. Like that, they're foreign in spirit.
Yeah. Yeah. So you one would end up thinking their belief is superior to another person compared to if your base is the same. Because if your base is the same, then you both build on the same base and you can actually build something up. But once your base is not the same, one of you will always be trying to overpower the other one. And what it means is there is no way that there's going to be progress in that relationship. It's going to be conflict all the way. Yeah.
There can be no order. And that's why it's just, and it goes back to it every single time. Like there has to be spiritual synergy, and some people mistake like emotional connection or a feeling of euphoria with this is we have a spiritual connection. It's like y'all don't believe in the same things. Y'all don't even have the same outlook on God or spirituality and life and society and family, but you may have, like, it's very, like, we're all energetic beings. You can have a very strong energy connection with someone, and it can feel like a spiritual connection. But when you actually look at the building blocks of, if we're going to build a family together, whose rules do we follow? Yours or mine? Right? If we don't believe in the same things, then we can't even believe in the same order because we fundamentally disagree, but we mask the disagreement with, we both like red, or we have amazing sex, or whatever the case it is, you put something else over it to cover it up. Or we look good together, or we both make a lot of money, or whatever it is. I feel people make a lot of excuses for why the foundation has to be strong. And you need a strong spiritual foundation. You have to be able to go back to your spirituality, your faith, and your belief system, because you have to go back there together. When you can go back there together and you know you're both having the same communion, there's a deeper level of trust there than, okay, I'm not sure if you're going on your own understanding, you're going on God's understanding, this God's understanding, that God's understanding. I don't know where you're at, really. I can't really tell where you are spiritually because we don't connect there. So what is really happening? And getting to that point is admittedly difficult in this world where a lot of people are, it's sex first and ask questions later. Yeah. It's hook up first and then figure out the person later. I met them, we talked for a little bit about, small talk. We went out, we got some few drinks, we had sex, then I figured out what they believed in after. And it's like, well, that's not going to work.
And by that time for us as ladies, there's a baby coming from that week of fun. And by that time you realize that, oh my God, this is not what I thought it is. Mm-hmm. And a baby's on the way. Because for us, that is one of the, is that platform that is just the worst, where we experience the worst pain when you realize that, okay, I've just overcommitted myself here to someone who didn't actually deserve this, so to say. I've just overcommitted too prematurely. And like you're saying, it's not so popular to wait and think and say, okay, let me just be busy with other things and just find myself in a good place where I'm actually confident, because there's another point I just want to remember. Feminism. So the issue of feminism and where most of us believe that when you're feminine, actually not feminine, it means it goes together with abuse. It's because most of us assume that when you're feminine, you don't have boundaries. There's a huge difference. being feminine, you actually do have boundaries. That's a healthy state.
Yep.
When you're feminine, you just know what is your strength, and boundaries is one of the basic building blocks of life, just having healthy boundaries. But if your boundaries were violated, which usually happens usually in your childhood, if your boundaries were violated, then naturally then you generally don't have boundaries. So what it means, you can still be an empowered woman, a powerful woman, but lack boundaries. And how you would know that you lack boundaries despite your success is that you have these things, but you're still emotionally vulnerable. You're still spiritually vulnerable. People are still able to get into your space with your permission and violate your peace, violate your confidence because you lack boundaries. So I think this idea of, okay, when you're feminine, it means that you're going to be abused. I mean, women that are feminine were abused. There's a difference. When you don't have boundaries, that's something else. But actually, for somebody to be in their feminine state, which is a healthy state, it means that if there were issues in their childhood, they were able to work on them along the way. Other than that, it means their childhood was well supported, which is how it's supposed to be ideally for us as boys and girls growing up, to be with parents who understand the importance of family, because people are making family as an option. But human beings are created to have a family for a reason. Even though now we're making it so unpopular, like, no, you don't need a man, you don't need a woman, just get a baby and then get a caretaker to take care of the baby. Unfortunately, a human being was not created to function like that. Family was supposed to be the core, so that you develop in a healthy way, that, even from, primary school, that you're not bullied. Because the minute you're being bullied all the time, most likely there's an energy of vulnerability. That's why you are bullied and you don't know how to have boundaries. And your parents having created the open platform where you can, every day when you come back from school, say, this is how my day was. This one said this to me. This one did this to me, and intervene as things happen. So if parents didn't create that for you, what it means is people take advantage of you all the way from down there, and no one picks it up. You just grow up being bullied. You grow up being bullied, and it goes on and on and on. And now, as part of you surviving the bullying, you work so hard and you say, I'm going to have so much money that no one will ever bully me again. So most of us we hardly sit down and question why we are so defensive most of the time. And we end up blaming people along the way. And we fail to look back and say, but what happened to me? I wasn't protected as I was supposed to be protected. I wasn't empowered in a healthy way from my childhood. So now I get to adulthood, I'm defensive. I'm using things to protect myself. I'm using things to attack people. But that just being a sign of you trying to recover from the abuse, from the neglect, from your boundaries being violated all the way from the back. Because by the time you're an adult and you lack boundaries, it's not a new thing. It's something that comes back from way, way, way back there. So being able to be in your feminine and your masculine space, which is a healthy space, means that it's either a good environment was created for you. If it wasn't as good, you were able to work through it to create that healthy environment where you can actually engage in healthy relationships. Yeah. That's in closing. I'm done.
Yo, she just dropped the mic. That was it. Like that. It's inner child healing and that's really the core of how the feminine prepares, right? Because since men don't gauge women on material things, and they're really judging you by your spirit and your emotions and your healing process, and where are you emotionally? Can you really be an asset spiritually? Because the feminine is here to inspire, and if you're in a space of defensive-ness or pain or hurt, it's very hard to inspire, because you're still trying to, you're using one arm to protect yourself and one arm to give, but you're giving shorthandedness, or you're overcompensating in what you give because you lack it emotionally. And men have to do that same work as well, but that work fuels men, because it's all about confidence and how sure yourself you are. And just closing up, like as a man heals those things, he gets to understand his value and what he's here is here to contribute. And if he, like also the healing has to be aligned with God as well. Like you can do that therapy work, and if there's no spiritual foundation, it can still, be next, for nothing because you're healed, but now under what authority are you under? And it's just important we do the healing work as far as preparation goes. Like we talk about, kind of the ills of not preparing, but to prepare yourself, it's like no matter how old you are, you could be 18 watching this, 28, 38, 48, 58, 68 watching this and saying, hey, how can I heal myself? How can I heal my relationship? How can I heal my marriage? And you have to be willing to go to those spaces that hurt and to really address them. And then also look at where have I stopped following the order? Where have I replaced God's order with society's order? The society's order doesn't change the spiritual guidelines that we've been given. They're there for a reason, to protect us. And so healing, living in order, and then understand this masculine feminine balance is so key. And with that, we can start creating a new generation that understands these things, because we're going to be coming together in union to teach the children these things. So if you've been hurt in your childhood, you got to heal, because I got to have a partner who understands healing so we can pass healing energy to our children. And that's what it's about. It's about raising the next generation in a higher state of consciousness and understanding of how the world works, how family works, so that we create better families and more connection and more union. And so it's hard. It's hard work, being a human, right? We get to enjoy this life, but we have responsibilities along the way, right? It's like there's pros and cons, benefits, things to everything, but we can't neglect the responsibility in terms of, and saying, because what freedom really is, right? We say we want to be free from something. We're saying, I want to be free from being responsible for upholding these guidelines, these laws. But we can't value freedom over responsibility. We have responsibility to ourselves, to our partners, to our children, to our communities, to our countries, to say, hey, we're going to build in good faith. We're going to build in order. That's my responsibility. And when you have the responsibility, you can enjoy life. Yeah. Like if you just cover that basis, that's just the foundation of, this is my responsibility as a human here. God's given me a purpose. God's given me a mission. God's given me rules and responsibilities and guidelines. If I just follow those things, everything else is free to enjoy. He said, hey, enjoy the garden. Just don't eat from that tree. It's like, enjoy this whole, just don't touch that. And we're like, what if I touch it?
And boundaries, that is a boundary. That's the importance of boundary. Because it's your spirit, self-control, self-discipline. God believes in that a lot. So true freedom is responsibility.
We have the tools, we have the knowledge, we have the resources. It's just about, do we value it or not, right? Like, do we value these things? And sometimes we have to have them discussions like this to maybe like decode some things that may be misunderstood, or maybe, called culturally in the traumas or in the philosophies that kind of get mixed up, because a lot of different things going on between emotion, sexuality, sensual nature, spiritual nature, your upbringing. So there's a lot of things that can derail the path. And it's just like, no matter where you are, you can always get back to the order if you value it enough. And so prepare yourself for the person that is going to be living in order. Prepare yourself for to be in order is to attract order. So if you're in a space where you feel like you're attracting chaos, or all you see is chaos, then you may have to question, what cultural norms are you following that may be avoided by people in order? If I'm in a space where I only see chaotic women, then that means I'm in the wrong space. Because there are spaces where if I want to find chaotic women, I know where to go. If I want to find chaotic men, I know where to go. And some of you frequent these places because you think those spaces are fun because they feel free. But that is the temptation of sin. because chaos isn't harmful until it's harmful. It's good on the first try until it's not. You realize, oh, this isn't working. What's happened? It's like you have to look back 10 steps before this, how you got here. So like when you live in order, you get the consequence always comes later. Right? If you do good, you don't get good just because you did good that one time. But if you live a life of good, you get good. If you do bad, you don't get a bad consequence just because you did bad that first time. But if you live in a negative way, you will get that consequence eventually. And good or bad is just in order or out of order. So we have to choose order and start parsing through things that are trying to influence us against it. But that's all I really had. This is a great conversation. Think about it as mating and preparation, and like we have to value family, value order, value God, value spiritual principles, value the guidelines, and we'll be fine. It's just we have to course correct. The car has skid a little bit in humanity. We have to course correct and get it back on track so that we can really we can enjoy life better when we have the guidelines. That's the thing. You'll enjoy life better when the guidelines are in place.
That's it. That's it. Thank you so much, Malik. This was great.